So now let's animate the stick figure standing up from his fall and reacting to the hammer swing we made in the last video. The plan is for the stick figure to stand and look left, then right, see the hammer, and run this way to avoid the swing. So let's make the pose where he stands upright. Actually, before we dive into animating the character, let's create a guide to help us keep his size and proportions right. I'll make a new layer called Guide. Then let's look at the original stick figure. Get the line tool, and we'll make the color cyan. We'll make lines at his head and feet to establish his height, and then another at the hips. Now let's just scale those lines so they span the whole stage, and move them down to the bottom where the character falls to. Lock it and make it a guide layer. Then that will help us get the height right when the figure stands up. Now I'm going to draw in the body. He's going to be looking left when he gets up. And I'm actually going to move the anchor point on the head symbol to the neck so I can rotate the head and have it look natural. Now I'll draw the pose of him looking the other way. And I'm going to flip the head. Even though it's a circle, it's not quite symmetrical because it's hand drawn. And then draw his legs and arms bending the other way. Next, I'll do the pose where he reacts to seeing the hammer. Then the crouch as he gets ready to jump out of the way. And then just before the hammer comes down, I'll make a pose of him extended to leap out of the way. Then the pose at the end of the leap where he makes contact with the ground. And then here's the pose where he'll come to a stop. So looking back, I think the reaction to the hammer isn't extreme enough. So I'm going to change that to him jumping in the air. So those are the key poses. Even with just these, we can play it back and get a feel for the timing. So now we just need to fill in the poses that come between our keys. For a simple character like this, the in-betweening is pretty easy. For example, here for standing up, we can just copy the first pose and shift things a little closer to the next pose, and then copy the last pose and shift it a little closer to the previous one. And there you can see that he already looks in-betweened without having to redraw anything. Then I just need to add one more in-between here where there's a bigger change in the pose, and I will redraw the body on this one. Then for the turn, I'll do the same thing. Copy the first pose and adjust it slightly. Then copy the last pose and adjust it slightly. Then a single in-between. Now for the jump, I'll need a little more. I'll do a pose where he's ducked down for anticipation. Then I'll need a breakdown pose where he's extended fully. Then actually let's change the key pose so the arms are turned more. Then on the way down, we need a breakdown pose where he makes contact. Then we want the head to make an arc, so I'll position it here. And fill in the body. Then where should his arms be? Gotta check the previous frames to see how they're moving. That should work. I'm not liking this arm's position on the earlier frames. It's not changing position enough. So let's start it lower, gradually have it come up, and go back farther. So there, he's kind of windmilling his arms as he jumps. I wonder if that's too much. I think I'm going to do something different with the arms. I'm just going to delete those. Maybe we could have him hold on the up position longer and do a surprise pose like this. Yeah, I think that's going to work better. So now I'll just add in the arms gradually, moving up to his head. And then coming off as he comes down. Okay, let's speed up the jump up, and while he's holding in the air, I want some kind of animation. So let's move him slightly and adjust the limbs a little so he doesn't feel frozen. Let's move that key over and make another pose where we do the same thing. There, that made it much better than before. Let's move the end keys in more. And I think we need one more in between here to cover this gap when he comes down. I'll move the body down just a little, but have the legs start changing position for landing. Good. Now for the run. In between here, we need a passing pose for the run. And actually we should move all these frames for the run earlier. Then let's do a pose in between the start and the middle pose. The back arm here is behind the head, so we don't see it. And then again at the beginning, I'm going to make one more in between by copying and shifting the starting pose a little. Now let's do the pose where he's leapt up into the air. And actually it seems like his arms have switched, so I'm going to reverse it on the next key. That will match up better to the run. Then after the touchdown, we need some in-betweens as he slows out of the run. There's an extra step in there, so match up the feet. And actually, maybe his jump doesn't need to be that long. I'm going to shorten that and leave space for 3 steps to slow out of the run. So there would be another pose here. Okay, now I need to put an in-between between each step. Let's tighten up the spacing of the keyframes. And then actually the hammer could be faster, so I'll shorten this tween. And let's move the whole hammer animation sooner. Oh, the hammer's hitting his foot now. Move it back just a couple frames. And there, now it just barely misses him. That's what we want. Now I think I can speed up the run by taking out some frames. Now the 3 steps at the end feel really slow compared to everything else. So let's get rid of those and change it to one big step. I'll add a middle pose. Then I'm going to worry about the arms later. I'm just going to in between the rest of these without the arms to check the speed. He's covering a lot of distance here, so there needs to be a lot of in-betweens. And the poses get closer and closer together as he slows out of the run. Now I can focus on one arm at a time and just have it gradually follow the direction it started on. Then go back, and the other arm is coming up the other way. Now the only problem is it's not settling well. It's stopping very suddenly. I want to have some more ease out, so I'm going to make some poses before the last one by copying it and just slightly shifting the character like we did before. Okay, let's check the whole thing. Since we made him faster, he's dodging too quickly, so let's shift all these keyframes around so it just barely misses him again. Perfect. Okay, so our stick figure has successfully avoided the first attack, but what do we do next? We'll continue the animation in the next video.